Hey mashed potatoes, welcome back to another episode of Miniature Mashup that is both happy and mealy. That's right, it's yet another Happy Meal to tabletop miniature conversion. This one is both the fastest and easiest I've ever done, so if you were thinking of giving something like this a try, a project like this one would be a great place to begin. This is a Grubbin Pokemon Happy Meal toy.
Grubbin is a bug-type Pokemon, right, Pikachu?
Okay. He's not cheap secondhand thanks to collector's pricing. Apparently there are some people out there who still gotta catch 'em all, but if you stumble across this guy in a thrift store like I did, you shouldn't pay more than $1 for him. I got this one for $1.
Grubbins are weak against fire, rock, and flying type attacks, right, Pikachu?
Okay, I'll let you get one for free because you're a child. Hit the road.
But
We're not doing this bit. Get out of here.
They actually do make official giant beetle miniatures for Dungeons & Dragons, but they're pretty expensive. Collectability has made the pre-painted Celestial Stag Beetle go for about $10 if you can even find one. And then there's Reaper Bones, which aren't that big and are still a few bucks. There's not a ton of giant bug miniatures made by miniature companies, and for good reason. There are just so many dollar store options, bug bucket collections, gumball machine critters, Halloween novelties. Finding a good-sized, decent-looking plastic bug is not hard to do on the cheap. You can usually find a sack of these plastic bugs at your local thrift store if they have a toy section. But this little mutant candy corn is what I'm working with today. This guy was part of the Sun and Moon Pokemon Happy Meal toy collection that was put out by McDonald's. And I know you think I'm probably an old guy and I can't name the Pokemon in this set, but you'd be wrong. Starting with the top row, there's Ryan Reynolds, a bloody cat-shaped cyst, Muttplug. Getting down to the bottom row, we've got Grubbin, we've got Miyazaki Cronenberg. Of course, who can forget the fancy Mr. Hoodles and Rodan? In spite of it looking more like a minivan than an actual insect, it's got a lot to offer. It's a lot bigger than your typical rubber bug toy, not including some of those bigger dollar store ones, but as someone who's worked with both dollar store toys and Happy Meal toys, I can say firsthand that Happy Meal toys are a harder plastic that is much easier to work with on every level. Just chopping them up, kit bashing them, I find the dollar store toys can be a bit rubbery, and rubbery things don't like to work with most glues. I'd like to take the screws out of this toy and get that little wind-up engine out of it just to make it lighter. Sorry, Mr. Grubbin, doctor's orders. But I did manage to get that triangle-headed screw out of there, but the toy still wouldn't open up no matter how much I pried, so I guess it's also glued shut. If only catalytic converters were this secure. Here you can see it's a working pullback toy, albeit a very, very weak one. These are the hands from some Bionicle guy. I'm going to trim off the connector piece in the wrists. I don't need it. This little Grubbin's foot needs to come off. It looks like I won't be doing that with a safety knife. Go Gadget Dremel Tool! But we will use the safety knife to clean up the chewed up plastic. I think these legs fit perfectly, and their shape even resembles the shape of our Grubbin's pincers, so once this thing is painted, I'm certain this will all hang together in a coherent way. For gluing light plastic to light plastic, hot glue guns are perfect. Our base is a metal cutout made from a hole saw. It's not jagged or rusty, and it's obviously quite solid as it's made of steel. It's just another piece of scrap I picked up some months ago when I was still capable of taking long walks. In order to adhere light plastic to steel, we're going to use a serious adhesive. Luckily, I still have some of this one left. I call this move the German pedicure. Don't Google that, kids! And this cutout is basically the perfect size for our bases. This is how good this glue is. It will support this solid steel base. Not that it's very heavy, but it's heavy enough. I'm going to throw a little white PVA glue on the base. Oh, Mr. Grubbins, do control yourself. I'm just going to spread this around with an old popsicle stick. And I'll use this toothpick to get the glue around in between the legs. Now I'm placing bits of cork that I've torn up with pliers onto the base. This is my favorite material for making rocks. Then a quick little dip into the craft sand, and that's it for the assembly portion. Now we're moving on to the paint. I'm going to use a black glossy spray paint in order to make this thing look like a scarab, but I don't want to have to paint over the black glossy paint on the base material, so I'm going to cover it up with some cardboard first to shield it from the spray can. I don't usually spend this much time showing myself spraying on paint, but in this case, this will be a lot of the paint job. I'm not really going to add much to the beetle after this.
Oh, as soon as you paint that little grub in black, we'll sneak him into the Pokemon ball.
Oh, so you want a black shiny ball then?
That's exactly what we want.
Looks like Team Rocket's blasting off again!
Now this footage is a couple of months old, and this was a really nice day for spray painting, but we have not had a lot of those lately. It's in the 40s typically during the day, sometimes 50s, 60s. It's all over the place. When it is warmer in the winter, say December, November, it tends to be rainy. The upshot of this for people doing miniatures, or especially if you're taking photographs of them like me, is overcast days are great days to get your miniatures outside and get pictures of them, as long as they don't get rained on. Those clouds will diffuse the light and give you that nice shadowless, highlightless, glareless look that you're looking for. For the flocking, I'm just using my usual recipe of cinnamon or burnt sienna with Turner yellow dry brushing over it, a little black ink, not black ink, a little darker alcohol-based ink sometimes I'll put in as a shadow. I do the cork stones in a grayscale with washes and dry brushing. I kind of do this with every miniature. It's kind of lazy, but sometimes if a miniature is one of these colors, if it's too brown or if it's too gray, I'll put a green base underneath it, or I'll do something else, just so it doesn't blend into the base. But for miniatures that aren't that, I do kind of tend to lean on this because I think it looks good, especially with the materials I have. And I'm reluctant to try some new recipe out for the ground when I've got something that pleases me like this. So there it is. The eye is going to just be a pink triangle because pink looks good on black, and it's also a bit organic, while the triangle itself gives this whole thing a very retro evil robot vibe. Guys, as always, thanks for watching this. If you've enjoyed this video, please consider coming over to our Facebook page, saying hi, checking out my eBay store, picking up some miniatures, selling little minis on the side, sometimes painted, sometimes not. Really helps this channel get along, so if you want to throw us a few bucks, the deals there, I think, not to toot my own horn, are very good. Please like and subscribe, of course. Hit the little bell so you don't miss anything. Leave a comment. That always helps out. What did you think? Are there some other kinds of Happy Meal toys you'd like to see me paint up? I do have some HeroClix stuff coming up. I'm going to dry brush a little desaturated lavender onto the pincers just to make them stand out a bit. Just a personal note, I am out of bed. I was bedridden for about 5 weeks with fallen arches. I'm walking again. I'd say I'm walking at about 80%, which is great. I can still help around the house. I can still take care of my partner, Sidra. I'm cooking, I'm cleaning again. The place looks great. So I'm really grateful for that. Unfortunately, there's something going on with my foot where I'm walking on the side of it. I've still got some tendency. I think it's called supinated. And I can't walk for long without, some pain in my knee. And I got to figure it out. I still have a podiatrist appointment coming up. So hopefully we'll get all that hammered out. But anyway, I'm just in a better place with that. I thought you guys would want to know after my last video. In fact, the reason this video can even get made is because I'm up and about and I got to go outside and take pictures of my miniatures. It's something that these videos have needed done. Let's take a look at some shots of the finished product and get a sense of the scale and see what this looks like in play. As you can see, it's got a pretty good scale and looks real enough. I mean, again, for something kind of cutesy to be transformed in this way, I think the black glossy paint really does give it a little menace. Those big pincers really make it look imposing. Obviously, it stands over your average 28mm figure by a lot. It's much wider, as you can see from here. So it has a good size, a pretty mean look. I mean, it does look like a swollen tick in some ways, which I like. There's something a little bit Lovecraftian about something that looks kind of bloated with little tiny legs and giant pincers. And so it's I think it's a pleasing mini that took very little effort. I think the hardest thing, the most intense painting part of this was the ground, which is, again, a recipe I've used to death. So it doesn't take much work for me to slap some cork, some sand, little dry brushing on there, and I think, it's quite good, and you can't really beat the price. The base free, a lot of craft paint on this. I had to use up that glossy black spray paint. I mean, it had been sitting there forever. Can't do a lot with glossy as a miniatures painter. This was like left over from some kind of project I did for my mother. So it's not even a paint I would normally recommend you have on hand. But in this instance, I got to finish up the can and get a cool mini with very little effort. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.